Hello, this is David Newman again, and welcome to the Orchestral Tools Instrumentation Series. Today we're going to discuss the clarinet and bass clarinet. Now, generally in an orchestra, there are either two or three clarinets, maybe two clarinets and a bass clarinet or an E-flat, that kind of thing. But Alfred Newman, who was my father, who was the head of music at 20th Century Fox, had a very unusual way of using clarinets. He would use in a large picture, say like The Robe or Wuthering Heights or something, he would use 12 woodwind players, what we would call triple winds. That would be 3 flutes, 3 oboes, 3 clarinets, 3 bassoons. But what he would do, particularly when he was at Fox from 1939 to 1959, is use 2 flutes, 2 oboes, 5 clarinets, and 2 bassoons. And the clarinets he would use would be an E-flat clarinet, which will be on another episode, it will be discussed, 2 B-flat clarinets, which we will be discussing, an E-flat bass clarinet, which we'll discuss in another episode, which is a wooden clarinet instrument, and a B-flat contra bass clarinet, which is the low clarinet, which is used in orchestral music. And the reason that he did this is because of all the instruments in the woodwinds, the clarinets span the entire range. So it allows you, if you wish, to blend the woodwinds. Woodwinds don't tend to generally blend very well, which is most of the time what you want. You want a solo oboe, you want a solo flute, you want a solo clarinet. But when you want to blend things using bass clarinets and maybe even an E-flat clarinet, but particularly the other clarinets, really tends to blend the clarinet section. Also, one of the first jobs I had as a player in the 70s in Los Angeles was for a movie about Houdini, and the composer escapes me. But I think there were 6 or 7 clarinets in the orchestration. This guy, the composer, was a clarinet player originally. And it was just profoundly amazing listening to the colors. A person that knows how to write for the clarinet could get with all kinds of different clarinets and different registers, different ranges, different emotions, different drama. And this is one of the things in film music that you are allowed to do. You could write something with 5 or 6 clarinets because you're only going to play it once. So let's dive a little deeper into the clarinet and bass clarinet. For about 100 years, there have been up to 12 versions of the clarinet. The most common version of the clarinet in modern orchestras are the B-flat clarinet, the A clarinet, and the B-flat bass clarinet. The B-flat and A clarinet consists of 5 parts. The mouthpiece is connected to the barrel, a piece of tube which leads into the upper joint or left-hand joint. The right-hand joint, or lower joint, is connected to the bell of the instrument. The keywork and the holes are on the joints and the bell. The bass clarinet looks quite similar to a saxophone. The crook is S-shaped and connects the mouthpiece to the upper joint. The bell, which is connected to the lower joint, points backward up the tube. The clarinet is a single reed instrument, and the tone is produced by blowing into the instrument, which causes the reed to vibrate. After its modification at the turn of the 18th century, the clarinet became a standard instrument in the woodwind section. In symphony orchestras, the clarinets usually sit in the second row of the woodwinds, next to the bassoons and behind the flutes. Mozart strove to integrate the clarinet into the orchestra, and it was because of his dedication to the sound of the clarinet that Beethoven's symphonies already made the clarinet a permanent part of the woodwind section. Since that time, it is used equally with the oboe and flute. Composers love the clarinet since it's an extraordinarily flexible and virtuosic instrument with a big range. One can play very fast cascades and runs on the clarinet. We differentiate between 2 key systems, the French and the German system, which do not only differ in their fingerings, but also in the sound. Both systems are equally used and preferred by different players. Modern orchestras use the A or B-flat clarinet depending on the key of the music performed. Sharps are easier to play on an A clarinet, flats are easier to play on a B-flat clarinet. Due to its longing sound, the clarinet is often used to express loneliness, deep emotions, or to create warm and calming pictures. This is quite interesting, given that its natural color is mainly joyful, sometimes even with a comic nuance. The range of the B-flat clarinet is from D3 to B-flat 6, or D2 to B-flat 5, after the MIDI definition used in our sampled instruments. The range of the A clarinet is just a half tone lower. The bass clarinet sounds almost a full octave lower, from B-flat 1 to B5, or B-flat 0 to B4, after the MIDI definition used in our sampled instruments. The lower register of the instruments sounds dark and mellow. On the B-flat clarinet, it is often used to fill tutti passages, while on the bass clarinet, this register is preferred for serene and solemn passages. The bottom register of the bass clarinet is also used as the fundamental of the woodwind section playing pianissimo. Because of the lack of overtones, the middle register sounds rather weak and dull on both instruments. Famous composer Richard Strauss wrote that in a woodwind chorale, the clarinet should be used in a higher range than the oboe because of the weakness of the clarinet in this register and the full, warm sound of the oboe. The tone of the upper register can be described as bright and brilliant. On the B-flat clarinet, this is the register most used. Because the clarinet can play very fast lines, figures, and runs, it is often used in octaves together with the flute for these effects. On the bass clarinet, it can be used to support the weaker middle register of the B-flat clarinet. The higher register is seldom required. The tone is rather shrill. Obviously, the tongue takes a huge part in creating the tone of a clarinet. Just like other reed or double reed instruments, the tongue is a bit limited because the mouthpiece prevents its free movement. The tongue can be used in two ways. You can start the air stream with a syllable like ta or da. You can also use the tongue to stop a note with a tat or a dat. By articulating a lingual or a rolled R, the technique called flutter tongue can be produced. Trills are performed on the clarinet very often. Some fingerings are difficult to play, and certain trills are made easier by special trill keys. Playing fast repetitions of a certain larger interval produces a trembling sound, which is called a tremolo. Usually tremolos with thirds or fourths are the most common. By partly covering the holes or changing the fingerings, wide glissandi can be produced. Producing more than one note on a monophonic instrument is called multiphonics. With special fingerings and altered embouchure, depending on the way of playing, different multiphonics, from inharmonic partials to complex sounds, can be produced with this technique. Thank you for watching this episode about the clarinet and bass clarinet, and stay tuned for more.